All right, class, welcome to AP Human Geo. We're going to go ahead and start doing these video lessons just so that I can keep you guys on the right track. I'm in testing all this week, so I won't see you in person until next week, fingers crossed. And then we can go ahead and cover any questions or anything like that you may have. But until then, I would like you guys to take notes and make sure you're following along in the note packet that I gave you so that when I see you again, we're not falling behind. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Today we're going to talk about how the world is divided. Not divided like you and your friends when you guys are arguing about something that's going on or something that happened in school, but we're going to dive into political geography. So why the world map looks the way it does, who makes the rules, and why do some places have more drama than your grandmother's novela. Okay. So in 4.1, we're going to cover how space is politically organized. So the big idea today, we're breaking down how different types of political entities exist and function. We'll cover terms like nation, states, stateless nations, which, trust me, is not just a fancy way of saying people with no home address. These terms actually shape international relationships, conflicts, and even what your passport says that you carry. By the end of this, you should be able to define political entities, so things like states, nations, and multinational states. Identify real-world examples, which means, yes, we'll bring up places that you've heard of, not just random countries from a random map quiz. Okay, so what is a state? Let's start with the most basic unit in political geography, the state. No, not like Florida, but an actual country is a state. So a state has a defined territories with borders, a permanent population, people actually living there, a government, hopefully one that works, and a sovereignty, which is the ability to control what happens inside of its borders. It also has recognition. This is that other states must acknowledge that this place exists, kind of like when you finally get verified on Instagram. People know who you are and that you exist. So an example would be that the United States is a state because it checks all of these boxes. Florida, not a state in the sense of what it is, what you're thinking of. It's a part of the United States, but it doesn't have full sovereignty, although some people here in Florida like to act like it does. It means that we're part of a larger country, and we're not, as Florida, not allowed to do whatever we feel like doing in the country. We still have to abide by federal rules and regulations. Okay, so what is a nation? Now, what a nation is a group of people who share two things: a common identity. They think the way they think, their culture, their language, and their history is all shared. And they also have a shared heritage, so ancestry and traditions. So an example would be the Cherokee Nation in the U.S., and let's make it a little bit more closer to home. So think of Cubans in Miami or Dominicans in New York. These communities share languages, culture, and traditions, even though they all don't live in the same country. Okay, so here is continuing on a nation. So the U.S. recognizes 573 native or tribal nations living within the U.S. territory. Other examples would be Flemish, Walloons, Maori, Cherokee, Serbs, Yoruba, Pashtun, and Scots. Okay, so the nation state. A nation state is the ideal setup when a nation and a state perfectly overlap. One group of people, one government. Sounds simple, right? Japan is a great example. 98% of the people there are ethnically Japanese, and they run their own government. Denmark and Iceland also fit this model. Now, do true nation states really exist? Not really. There's always some level of diversity, no matter where you're looking at, but these are probably the closest examples of a nation state where everyone has a heritage closely tied to that country. All right, so a nationless state is a nation where people don't have their own state. They exist, they have an identity, but no internationally recognized country. So the examples of this would be the Kurds that live in Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. They don't have a country of their own. They just live spread out throughout these places. The Palestinians are another one. They have territories, but not fully sovereign state, so they don't have their own place. So imagine if all the Cubans wanted an independent little Havana as a country by itself inside of Miami. It's kind of like that, but on a global scale. Okay, so moving on to a multinational state. A multinational state is a country that contains more than one nation. Basically, different cultural groups live under the same government. So the U.S., of course, has tons of ethnic and cultural diversity. Tons of people from different places all living in one country. Russia is another one. They have over 190 ethnic groups. Keep in mind, ethnic groups and races are not the same thing. Canada has a French-speaking region of Quebec. Not all of Canada is French-speaking, but they do have the French regions. Kind of think of a big high school cafeteria. So different groups coexist, and there's always that one table or province that wants to go by themselves and have their own thing. So think of it like high school cliques. Everybody is kind of into their own thing. Everyone has their own group of friends, and this is sort of that same idea played out on a national scale. Okay. So the multinational state, I'm going to put these videos separately in links, but I do want you to go back and watch them. I just don't have time to play them on this video because it'll time out on me. But I'm going to link them so that you can watch them. I do want you to pay attention to the videos. So example would be Canada. Quebec is mostly people of French descent. Canada passed legislation making Canada bilingual to prevent Quebec demanding independence. They also gave this province more autonomy. So additionally, the First Nations people, which I told you those are the Native Americans in Canada, who recently they got 2000 got Nunavut are also a nation in Canada. And then another example would be in North Ireland is a physically separated from the island of Great Britain. Great Britain contains England, Scotland, and Wales, and they are all distinct nations that have been given to some degree of an autonomy and self-rule, but they are still limited under the United Kingdom.
Welcome to the United Kingdom.
Sorry about that. Okay, so the multi-state nation. A multi-state nation is when a single ethnic group is separated across multiple states. So Koreans are split between North and South Korea. North and South Korea are very, very different. And then there's also ethnic Russians. So they live in Russia, but they're also in former Soviet territories like Ukraine and Latvia. So this is like if Hialeah and Kendall were split into two separate states, but still had the same culture. And let's be real, they still claim that each one would make the best croquetas. Okay, sorry about that. So multi-state nations, Romania, Hungarians live in the same in the state known as Hungary, but many also live in Transylvania region of Romania. Yes, Transylvania, like Dracula. But they're the ones, that's where the legend comes from. And for those of you that didn't know, Transylvania is a real place. So the Korean nation state is also divided into states, like I said previously, North and South Korea.
Kurds are seen as the world's largest ethnic group.
Okay, so types of political entities. So we're going to go ahead and talk about autonomous regions and semi-autonomous regions. So in this one, some regions have autonomy. That means self-rule within a larger country, and they're able to have things that they're able to regulate a lot more of what they do. So they have some degree of independence. For example, Hong Kong technically is a part of China, but they have their own legal system and their own currency. Native American reservations in the U.S. would be another example. Think of it like your house rules. Your parents are the sovereign state, but they may let you decide certain things, like what music to blast in your room, but they still have control over the Wi-Fi password. Okay, so the semi-autonomous regions, this is a transition between autonomous and dependent territories. They're not isolated from the rest of the country. They are a part of they're of a state that has a degree but not complete self-rule. Once again, I'll attach the video for you to watch later.
This video was made possible by HelloFresh. Go to HelloFresh.com.
Okay, so semi-autonomous regions, any major crimes between Native Americans and Indian reservations can be prosecuted only in the tribal or the federal courts, not the state one. The state does not have any rule over those types of crimes. So the state says that, among other things, the federal government and the tribal courts would have to devote many more resources to prosecuting crimes in the area. Since state courts would no longer be used, the state would have to stop collecting taxes from people living there who claim to be tribal citizens, and then the businesses would need new licenses. Okay, so we're going to review some of these questions. You're also going to complete the review questions in your packet, and you're also going to complete the review questions that I have posted on quizzes for you for these lessons. So make sure that you can name examples of the nations. You're also going to tell me the difference between a nation and a nation state. You're going to identify and define a stateless nation, identify two multi-state nations, identify a multinational state, give an example of a semi-autonomous region in the U.S., and describe what a state is. You're going to give me 5 characteristics of a state. And then you're also going to define sovereignty. So think of this as your AP warm-up, trying to make sure that you understand fully what is going on in 4.1. Okay, so we covered a lot today. Political entities, how borders are drawn, why some places have more conflict than a Thanksgiving dinner debate. And this stuff isn't just about maps, it's about history, culture, and even what's happening in the news today. So as you scroll through TikTok tonight, if you still have it on your phone, if you see a geopolitical argument in the comments, congrats. Now you know what they're actually arguing about. And until I see you guys in class again, I hope you guys are doing well, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.